What did you guys think about VR's presence at the show? This was like Sony's big opportunity to sell people on PlayStation VR. Personally, I was a little bit underwhelmed by what they were showing. There's a lot of novelty, blown out segments, but like I tried Farpoint, and I thought the tech was pretty cool. Like looking down and seeing your full body in outer space, I was able to immediately rotate the gun and shoot myself in the head, which was really fun. And the guy giving the demo was like, "All right, stop doing that." But I had to stop halfway through because I got too nauseous.
Oh wow! I wonder why.
You just blew your own brains out.
But I feel like Oculus has been beating this drum of like you have to be careful with how you like move players in VR. Very delicate. We want to make comfortable VR experiences, and it seems like Sony is just kind of going nuts, like a kid who found his dad's gun, as they say in Jurassic Park, where it's like, oh, whatever, Resident Evil 7, you can totally play in VR. You can use the sticks, move whatever you want, and then it's also in VR and look around. It seems like there's a lot more recipe for potential disaster for motion sickness there.
I heard more people this show complain about motion sickness than in the past. And a lot of it was, like even people on that Resident Evil 7 demo were saying they've got...
It made me ill.
Yeah.
And it's just the movement, right?
I think there's... I like to be very clear about things, about VR. I mean, I think we've talked about it in the past. That I always thought Sony was a little irresponsible when they're like, we're going to put Tekken on here or whatever. And you're like... I don't know that that's a good idea, right?
Just gonna ogle some women and call it a day. That's all that crap's gonna be.
So I mean, they've definitely taken a more open platform approach than say Oculus has with their concern about just the reaction people have from VR, right? But I think ultimately, I've always felt this way, and I felt this even as Oculus came through. Like software in its early stages, or software that wasn't ready, or software that just shouldn't have been shown, right? Made me sick, right? Like bad software makes bad things happen to your brain and makes you uncomfortable. In the case of Resident Evil, right, I felt there's a scene where you kind of follow a guy around and he has a beard and it shimmers. And one of the things I've discovered, because I've spent a lot of time in VR, when things shimmer in VR, like when they have we've all seen it in games when like the lighting can't quite decide where it is and it creates like kind of a like checkerboard effect that moves very quickly.
Right. Yeah.
Like
Stripe shirt in
like
HD.
HD where it does that, which you don't get in real life. When I get that in VR, headache city is coming for Andy.
And so this guy's beard was just driving you insane.
Migraine, like, oh,
it's part of the horror.
It was definitely a horror. So and you have to follow. I mean, obviously, the point of the game at that point is to follow him around, and his shimmery beard just like it just like my stomach just plummeted over that whole thing.
Oh my God.
And it did give me a headache at that particular one. And I mean, I feel like I'm a VR astronaut or whatever. I've been there. I've done that. I have some sea legs.
When you were playing the Oculus, you spent an awful lot of time.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, I've been there. I've done that. Like, if you're making me sick, you need to think about what you're doing, in my opinion, right? Not just place. I'm not any kind of standard or anything like that, but I did see a lot of games like that. I saw a lot of games with some things I was like, who made that decision? That just seems like a bad idea. I walked away from some. There's one I couldn't even watch on screen. I can't even remember what it was. Let It Die or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember. There was another like VR game that I was just like, I can't even watch this. But yes, overall, VR at the show, underwhelming. HTC Vive was doing tents where they were doing demos for people, which I guess is good that consumers could get to them, or who anyone like even out in front. If you just were walking past, I'm sure you could get in and see it. So that's cool. I mean, because that is definitely the most important thing for VR is for people to play it, for people to see it. I can't tell you to like it. We're going to scare you off more with like you're going to vomit stories than anything else, right? You have to go play it, right? But you need to play software that's done. And this show, because Sony was the centerpiece, because I think Oculus held back a little bit, even though they did show some new games, they weren't like, they didn't have any like kind of press conference. They weren't like, here's the touch pricing, here's when touch is coming out, VR.
Palmer Luckey came out and showed off an eagle flying around for a little while with Ubisoft, and that was about it.
That's about it, right? So there wasn't that grandiose display for VR, and I think even Sony kind of just had like they like had it at their press conference afterwards where people that were in attendance could go see stuff. And it was there and it was prominent. But because they were showing more early software, I think we had more of those stories of like, that gave me a headache, things like that. But I think the good news is bad software like that's going to die. Good software is going to live on. And you got to make a lot of software to find what's good and bad in VR right now. So I can't complain about them testing things. But there certainly does seem to be things that feel a little irresponsible to show. But that's my own feeling?
A couple of points. VR is the new arms race, where you have exclusives on all these systems. You know, like one of the games everybody was raving about, The Unspoken from Insomniac Games, kind of a Harry Potter-esque magic game where you're Discs of Tron kind of combat game, right? Oculus. You know, Sony said that they're going to have over 50 games in their, launch window?
Yeah, I think so, something like that.
Launch lineup. I mean, that's impressive, but a lot of that, you know, Star Wars X-Wing mission, which I thought looked very cool. Didn't get to play it, but
seems like what everybody wanted. Were they actually giving demos there?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But exclusive Sony. So this is another kind of console race of Oculus is going to make first party or, you know, their proprietary games just for their system, and they won't be on these other ones.
But who's persuaded to buy PlayStation VR from this show? Who's seeing like, oh, there's Arkham VR. That's kind of cool. I can have an hour-long experience and look at Nightwing's corpse.
I mean, I think that stuff's important. I mean, I think kind of giving those things brands and things that people know is, that's kind of marketing 101, right? I mean, you know, like to go like, oh, I can play the Batman game on there. Oh, I can play Final Fantasy on there. Oh, I can play. I mean, those are like things that people know, things that gamers know, and make it easy to associate and say, hey, oh, I want PlayStation VR, right? I mean, I don't think. That's to me, that's very obvious messaging that's going on, right? In that space. And I think that there's an opportunity there, certainly. But I mean, I think new IP, new development ideas based in VR are the most interesting, right? But that said, like Batman VR was an interesting. They basically said, hey, can we tell like kind of a weird, interesting Batman tale in VR that you can experience some things that you would never experience in any other Batman game? Sure, right? And I think that was like what they were trying to fulfill with Batman VR. And they have some innovations there, like using the belt to like put your stuff on was kind of the utility belt being in VR was kind of weird. And actually an interesting way to do inventory. Other games I've seen like just put the key in this weird empty thing like in space, and then that's like where you keep it, right? Like that was their solution to inventory, which is a little weird, right? You know, just like hang this thing out in space, where this has actually had a bit of like reality to it. And I think that helps like draw you into the VR experience there with Batman. Yeah. So, and it's early, and I don't think anyone's going to expect to sell that's the catch. You can't spend $75 million or $100 million like you would on like a Call of Duty on Call of Duty PlayStation VR right now. You'd be out of business in no time. You know what I mean? You'd be in big trouble. So things have to go up slow, and we have to find weird, cool experiences and have people test things out and learn and get better. And it's going to be a little messy.
Yeah, I think Andy's right. Having those big brands there at the front is a great thing because people are going to try this 15 minutes, 20 minutes like Rock Band or Connect. They're going to be in on it, right? They're going to want this, and then it's what comes next is what's really going to matter, and that's where the big question is going to be is, are they going to have those big experiences that people are going to be hungry for?